Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Counted. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies on Wednesday night lost a bizarre game to a Minnesota Timberwolves team that was without Karl-Anthony Towns and also without Jaden McDaniels. The Grizzlies committed 27 turnovers, which might be the headline of the story. That is the most turnovers the Grizzlies have committed in 15 years. Also, the Grizzlies missed a pile of free throws. They failed to make three-pointers. Also, by the way, they out-rebounded the Timberwolves by 30 and still lost. They're the first team to lose a game being plus 30 in rebounds since the famous Warriors and Thunder game where Steph hit a deep game winner in overtime. That game was very, very fun to watch. This game, not quite the same level of entertainment. 2016 was the last time a team was plus 30 in rebounds and lost. That's the bang! That's the Mike Breen bang on Steph Curry's game winner. Also, Sean Coleman points out that this loss was just the second time since 1994 that a team has lost in regulation where they had 30 or more rebounds than their opponent. Of course, that 2016 Thunder loss was in overtime. Over the past 40 years, there's been about 80 or so games where a team was plus 30 in rebounds. So about 2 per year on average. This was one for the Grizzlies this year, and they lose because they cannot hang on to the basketball. They also had a little bit of a meltdown in the fourth quarter. Dillon Brooks did a lot of harmful things down the stretch before finally getting ejected. Anthony Edwards is a problem. Anthony Edwards continues to cook the Memphis Grizzlies when they play. Anthony Edwards had 29 points and 5 steals and 3 blocks. Now, if you go back to the first round series between the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies, this is 8 games now where Anthony Edwards averages 26 points per game against the Grizzlies, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals. He's making 3.5 3-pointers per game in these last 8 games against the Grizzlies. Maybe don't antagonize that guy, Dillon. He's better than you are. Also, this game, of course, featured Kyle Anderson stepping into a starting role for the Timberwolves as Karl-Anthony Towns is out for a month or more with a calf strain. Kyle Anderson made a huge positive impact on this game for the Timberwolves. Kyle Anderson had an outsized impact just if you looked at his box score. The man was 3 for 11 from the field and still had multiple instances of giving Jaren Jackson Jr. fits. He drew 2 of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s 5 fouls, which is crafty veteran plays. This is the guy I've gone up against in practice, and now I'm going to use my dark arts to get Jaren into committing these offensive foul turnovers. He played good defense against Dillon Brooks. He played solid defense where this is the Timberwolves team that has struggled on defense. Their drop coverage they've been playing with Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns together wasn't really working. Now, with Karl-Anthony Towns out, Kyle stepping into that starting power forward role, the defense was much, much better. Now, how much of it was the Timberwolves defense versus how much of it was the Grizzlies just being careless and lackadaisical with the ball. I don't know. It's somewhere, there's a spectrum. It's somewhere in the middle. Also, if you want to come up with weird narratives for this game, I mean, maybe it's an honest narrative. The Grizzlies spent the last couple of days in New York City, so I could easily see how you could concoct a story of, hey, this young basketball team hanging out in, the bright lights, big city of New York, and then comes out flat in their next game when they travel to Minnesota. I mean, I have no information on that. Part of me feels like it's more restful not to fly home because, again, they played the Knicks on Sunday. Your options are you could fly home after the game, be in Memphis on Monday and Tuesday, then fly to Minnesota for the game on Wednesday. Is that better than just staying put, staying in New York for a few days, letting Desmond Bane do an autograph or meet and greet at the NBA store, and then, you don't have to travel. You get to hang out in the city. They had practice on Tuesday in New York City. Or maybe it was on Monday. Forgive me. I'm not sure which day it was. But they practiced in New York City at Madison Square Garden. And then they traveled to Minnesota. Whatever it is, they put up one of the weirder stat lines you'll ever see with the 27 team turnovers. And also, of course, the missed free throws. They were 18 for 30 from the foul line. How bad is that? Steven Adams made both of his free throws. And the team was still 60% from the line. The non-Steven Adams players were 16 of 28. The Grizzlies are last in the NBA in free throw percentage at 69%. Ja Morant missed a ton of them. Ja Morant had some spectacular plays like he has every single game. But Ja Morant had 7 of the Grizzlies' turnovers and was 6 of 11 from the line. In Ja Morant's last 10 games, he's shooting 65.6% on free throws. Before that, he was at 85%. It was a freezing cold take by me, thinking that his free throws had massively improved, that offseason shooting work was paying off. 66% from 3 in his last 10 games. He's also 30.9% on three-pointers in those same 10 games. He is second in the NBA in turnovers per game at 3.9 turnovers. First is Joel Embiid, whom the Grizzlies face on Friday night at the FedEx Forum. Get your tickets now for the D'Anthony Melton return game and the showdown of the top 2 individual turnover men in the NBA. I mean, Ja had 24 points and 6 assists and 2 steals, made 2 out of 4 three-pointers. But 7 turnovers, 5 missed free throws for him. That's not getting the job done. That's not good enough from our all-NBA guy. As a team, 27 turnovers and 60% from the line. It's catastrophic. What's wild is they were winning at halftime. They had 15 turnovers at halftime. They'd only made 3 three-pointers as a team. They were up by 4. It had been a full calendar year since they went in at the half, scoring fewer than 50 points and leading. They had the lead, then they had a terrible third quarter. The start of the third quarter, the starting lineup continues to be unable to generate offense. They fall down, but then Tyus Jones, David Roddy come in. Both those guys with their Minnesota connections have big games in Minnesota. David Roddy played in front of a lot of friends and family, had one of his best games of the year. The team starts making some three-pointers. They eventually take the lead on a David Roddy 3 in the first quarter, despite all of the three-pointers, despite all of the turnovers, despite all the missed free throws, and because of this unbelievable rebounding advantage, the Grizzlies took the lead in the fourth quarter. But then they make some mental mistakes. Dillon Brooks melts down a little bit. And I do want to highlight, before Dillon Brooks fouled Anthony Edwards by basically smacking him in the face. It was a reckless foul by Dillon Brooks. Then they both pick up technical fouls, Dillon Brooks and Anthony Edwards. And then Anthony Edwards just destroys Dillon for the rest of the game. But Before that happened, Dillon had made 3 great offensive plays in a row. He threw that alley-oop, that half-court alley-oop, the spectacular alley-oop to Ja Morant. All right, maybe it wasn't a great pass, but it was good enough. Then he makes an elbow jumper. Then he finds Steven Adams on a nice pick-and-roll pass. That was Dillon's 3rd assist of the game. He had this 5-game streak of having at least 4 assists. That fell apart. He finished with 3, partly because he got ejected. But he gets into it. Dillon gets into it with Anthony Edwards. But even before all that, he makes some mental errors on defense. The Timberwolves have an inbounds 90 feet from their basket with just a few seconds left on the shot clock. Dillon Brooks is overplaying Anthony Edwards instead of just staying in between him and the basket. I don't know if the coaching staff told him to do that. I can't imagine it. Kyle Anderson throws a leading pass over Dillon Brooks' head. The Timberwolves score out of the situation where the Grizzlies should have gotten a stop. There was another moment where the Timberwolves were inbounding over on the sideline. This wasn't Dillon's fault necessarily, but they're inbounding on their sideline. Just a few seconds left. They get a D'Angelo Russell 3. There's another time where Dillon gambles on a pass, trying to get a steal when they throw it to Anthony Edwards. He's not playing disciplined positional defense. Anthony Edwards scores. I mean, Anthony Edwards was spectacular down the stretch on his way to those 29 points. Dillon Brooks then went into hero ball, missed a couple of shots. There's a lot of evidence in the final 4 minutes for the anti-Dillon Brooks crowd, saying you can't win with a guy like that who is that temperamental, who melts down in those big spots. I don't have a strong pushback for that. I would say Dillon Brooks was questionable. His health was questionable coming into the game. So you weren't watching 100% Dillon Brooks. Outside of some inconsistent shooting numbers in the first few quarters, he played a good team game. His games before this were spectacular. Some very, very nice games he had coming into this one. But if you want to highlight the last couple of minutes, I mean, like, I'm not sure you can win a title with that guy being so prominently involved. I don't have a pushback to that. A fair opinion to have, and one that's not easy to refute the day after seeing the Grizzlies kind of lose like that. Also, Ja Morant loss is cool. I mean, Ja Morant did not have a great game like we're talking about. I don't know what he said to the official. They got him ejected with a single tech. It did feel like down the stretch, if I want to put on my Homer hat, it did feel like Gobert was getting away with more and more illegal screens on these pick and rolls. I also thought there was a bad 4-point swing where Jaren Jackson Jr. had a shot blocked in the first half that was clearly goaltending that the referees missed. And then there was a shot block a little bit later where Ja Morant got Wendell Moore's layup attempt before it hit the glass. And I'm like, that's not a goaltend. They called it goaltend. I posted it on Twitter. Ja Morant replied to me, which I was surprised by, that apparently he grabbed the net. I hadn't noticed that. Ja Morant does grab the net with his left hand. So the referees correctly called that a goaltend. But the referees didn't cause you to turn the basketball over 27 times. I don't even think any of the travel calls or offensive foul calls were incorrect. They were all correct. The Grizzlies were careless with the basketball. I don't know what you call it from the foul line. You don't make free throws. You don't win. It's hard to win if you're missing free throws and turning the basketball over and not making three-pointers. I mean, the Grizzlies finished with 9, which is not enough, but at least 6 of them were in the final 15 minutes. Gave yourself a chance. It's a big win for the Timberwolves because obviously they wanted to get a little revenge for the playoffs last year. They wanted to get revenge for the first matchup this season. Also, Ja Morant has struggled in Minnesota for the last 2 years now. His stats in Minnesota, not great. A lot of the players involved are different in this matchup than they were last year. Like Jaden McDaniels did not play. Patrick Beverley is no longer on the Timberwolves. But for whatever reason, the Timberwolves did a good job of defending Ja Morant, and they get the win. And now the Grizzlies are just kind of in this Western Conference standings morass. Everyone is stuck together. I mean, the good news is, as we all know, the team hasn't been healthy. They haven't had their preferred starting lineup, and they're in 4th. They're still home court advantage team. Of course, that kind of ignores the context of how closely packed together the entire Western Conference is. They are 3 games behind the Suns, who are in first, but they're only 1.5 games ahead of the Trailblazers and Timberwolves and Warriors, who are all tied for 9th. So there are like 6-7 teams, the Clippers, the Kings, the Jazz, the Mavericks, the Warriors, Timberwolves, and Blazers, who are just 1.5 games behind the Grizzlies. So I talked about that razor's edge of optimism and feel-good happiness that came down to pulling out that Knicks close victory. If Jalen Brunson makes a 15-foot jumper where he's wide open for, the Grizzlies are in a little bit of a tailspin. The Grizzlies had lost 4 of 5 before winning back-to-back games against the Pelicans and Knicks, so you're feeling all good. Then you lose to a shorthanded Timberwolves squad, you're feeling kind of bad again. And then you have to face a Sixers team on Friday that will feature another ex-Grizzly, D'Anthony Melton. His chance for a revenge game. The Sixers laid an egg on Wednesday night, only scored 85 points as a team. They will be looking to bounce back. You know, it's the game-to-game nature of fandom and podcasting where, all right, you beat the Sixers, you're feeling good again. If you lose to the Sixers, you drop a home game where you've been doing pretty well, then you get a little panicky once again. I mean, overall, I'm not panicky at all. You can clearly look at this team and just be like, we don't have our guys. Also, I think one of the reasons you're not panicking is specifically you're probably excited. Even based off this game, you're excited about how good Jaren Jackson Jr. continues to look. Let's talk a little bit more about Jaren. We'll break down some other stats and player performances from this game and do some other stuff right after this short break. The Memphis Grizzlies Season of Giving auction is now open for bidding. The auction includes autographed basketballs, jerseys, experiences, and more. Please visit handbird.com and search Memphis Grizzlies to place your bids. The auction will close December 5th. Proceeds from the auction will benefit St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Once again, go to handbid.com and search for Memphis Grizzlies to place your bids in the Memphis Grizzlies Season of Giving auction. All right, you guys know I'm obsessed with Kyle Anderson if you've been listening for any amount of time. Kyle Anderson tied his career high with 39 minutes played in this one. Yeah, 3 for 11 from the field, but 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. I counted at least 5 turnovers that he was directly responsible for, particularly those 2 I mentioned already of drawing offensive fouls on Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., like I teased before the break, great game. Double-double. 16 points, 11 boards, including 4 on the offensive end. He blocked 2 shots. He got to the foul line. He only played 25 minutes because of foul trouble. Did he foul out? No, he did not. Once again, Taylor Jenkins with an assist from our old buddy Kyle Anderson essentially fouls out Jaren. You lose a basketball game where your second best player only plays 25 minutes and does not foul out because you're worried about foul trouble. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but felt like I had to acknowledge that. Jaren has been tremendous this entire season. The way he's rebounding, I think, is incredibly exciting. He is currently averaging 18.5 points and 6.8 rebounds, along with those 3 blocks through his first 6 games. His per-possession rebounding is at a career high right now, averaging nearly 9 rebounds per game per 100 possessions. Jaren's looked great. Let's play him. Steven Adams had an all-right game. 8 points also, dominating the rebounds. He's always, the reason for the season when it comes to offensive rebounds for the Grizzlies. He had 6 offensive rebounds in this one. Conchar, I thought, had a really nice game. Conchar, 7 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. I think it's a good mental exercise to think about this game and think about John Conchar to reflect once again on the Grizzlies' depth. for this season and specifically for this game. I know when I was watching the fourth quarter of this one, my thoughts were, hey, when is Konchar going to get back in? Why hasn't John Konchar checked back in? And think back to last season when the Grizzlies were healthy or mostly healthy, Konchar got a DNP. So to go from the guy who got a DNP in most games or a lot of games last year when the team was healthy to this year, me watching the fourth quarters and being like, I really hope they put back in that guy who started and is playing because we're shorthanded. Like when just a couple of guys are out, all of a sudden he becomes crucial. Now, I do somewhat understand the decision not to go back to him because they were riding the hot hand with Tyus Jones and also the hot hand with David Roddy. Also, because this team was turning the basketball over so much, strong argument, let's put Tyus Jones out there to help handle the ball. Tyus is continuing his career-high scoring season. He's averaging over 10 points per game. Last year, he only averaged 8.7 points per game, and that's starting, a quarter of the season. Tyus Jones made 2 out of 3 three-pointers. 13 points, 6 rebounds, only 1 assist, and 2 turnovers. That is Tyus's third game of the season with more turnovers than assists. Last year, he had 2 the entire season. The year before that, he had 2 the entire season. I know I posted a bunch of 2-man net rating stats for 2-player combinations for the Grizzlies, and Tyus does not look very good on all those. I don't think Tyus is playing any worse. I don't think Tyus got paid and suddenly got worse. I don't think the turnovers are a result of anything he's specifically doing. I just think, one, it's an aberration. 2, he's playing with rookies more. Laravia didn't play in this game. They went with a 9-man rotation for the whole game. I don't know if that was related to David Roddy's homecoming. David Roddy playing well. They gave Roddy some extra minutes. But I just think it's hard. Same with Brandon Clark's on-off net rating. Brandon Clark was kind of invisible once again in this game. It's hard adding in different players who are not experienced NBA players, and because of that, you're going to get some stats are going to be off. Some lineup data is going to be not incredibly flattering, I believe. But the Tyus and Ja minutes, which historically I've been opposed to, I didn't mind it because, again, there's no clear answer. Tyus had provided an offensive punch, and I understood the argument, all right, maybe you just need ball handling to cut down on the turnovers. The Grizzlies did cut down on the turnovers at the end. Just their defense finally failed them. Maybe that's the trade-off. Defense with Tyus versus having Konchar on there. There are no perfect answers, and I'm not dogmatic currently on which lineups I think should be in the game. I mean, the fourth quarter lineups were a little bit interesting. They started the fourth with Tyus and Konchar and Roddy with Brandon and Jaren. Not bad. I like that. Just fine. Normally, Dillon is in there. As far as the past few games, it's been a Dillon, Brandon, and Jaren front court to start the fourth quarter. He wasn't in there this time. Then Jaren picks up that 5th foul where Kyle Anderson baits him into an offensive foul where Jaren's trying to get position. And then Aldama comes in, and we have Tyus, Roddy, Konchar, Aldama, and Brandon Clark. No thank you there. They did play the Timberwolves even over the few minutes they were on there. But that's playing with fire, because who's going to make shots in that lineup? Who's going to create shots? If it's Tyus and Roddy and Konchar and Aldama and Brandon Clark. But they played the Timberwolves even. Then Dillon does come back in and Steven Adams comes in. So you're playing small with Steven Adams as the only big lineup, which is okay, I guess. So far this year, the Grizzlies are plus 9.5 points per 100 possessions when Steven Adams is the only big on the court. So you got Roddy and Dillon is like your 3-4. You got John and Tyus playing together. And you're hanging in there. And then when Jaren checks back in, which you're like, oh, finally, I was wondering when Jaren was going to come back. And also Roddy had played 13 straight minutes in the second half. Once Jaren comes in, it all falls apart. There's an 11-0 run for Minnesota that puts the game away. Do I put that on Jaren? No, I don't really. I put that more on Dillon. I felt like Dillon kind of melted down, and the entire team not as disciplined on defense. And they already had a small margin of error with the turnovers and the missed free throws, and you miss your opportunity probably to get a bigger lead earlier. And then Anthony Edwards goes into superstar mode, and the Timberwolves put the Grizzlies away. Roddy, by the way, on the season, just going through my notes to see what I missed. He made 3 out of 4 3-pointers. He is up to 43% on corner 3-pointers, 12 for 28. He's just 9 for 39 on above the break threes, which is 23%. The Grizzlies are now 3-6 without Desmond Bane, and notably, as far as we know, Desmond Bane has not been reevaluated. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some injury news about Desmond. I guess we won't get it probably on Thursday because the Grizzlies are totally off today. They're not practicing today. So maybe we won't hear any Grizzlies news about the injuries until Friday because it's been over 2 weeks since they said he'd be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. So we're still in that time frame where they could reevaluate him. Drew Hill from the Daily Memphian is saying he's not like practicing. He's out of the boot, but he's not like doing normal basketball things yet as he returns from that big toe injury. But you would hope, it's not too far away for Desmond Bane's return. And then also Zaire Williams. We've heard nothing about Zaire Williams' injury. It is over 5 weeks now. Yesterday was 5 weeks since the team announced he's expected to return in 4 to 6 weeks. There's been no news that he's close or anything, so it's a little concerning. We were hoping we would have Zaire by now. We could put Conchar back into the bench role. I don't know. Would Conchar or Zaire start if both were healthy? I don't actually know the answer to that question. Before the season, I would have said Zaire, but Conchar's been really solid, elevating his game with the extra minutes. Again, I'm sitting there watching the game in the fourth quarter being like, please put this guy back in the game who got DNPs last year, and I liked that he got DNPs last year. But hopefully Zaire and Desmond are not too far away. The Grizzlies play this home game on Friday night against the Sixers. Then they play on Sunday. They play Sunday and Monday. The Sunday game is at Detroit, and they fly home to play the Miami Heat on Monday night. So your games are getting a little closer together there. These are the types of games where you need to rely on your depth typically. So like if Bane were available to come back for one of those games, it would certainly be welcomed. But that's the whole show for today. I appreciate you guys listening. If you're in the Nashville area, keep your eyes peeled. Next Friday on December 9th, I'll be hosting a watch party at Noble's Beer Hall for Grizzlies Pistons. That's not this Sunday for the Grizzlies Pistons. It is the Grizzlies home game against the Pistons, which is Friday, December 9th. If you're in the Nashville area and don't want to drive to Memphis, come to Noble's Beer Hall. I'll be giving out Grizzlies prizes, and we'll watch the game together. Please subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel. Thanks to all of you who have already done that. Anyways, hope you're having a great Thursday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz!